Good evening. What's going on, Pats Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Ken's Pats Talks Patriots podcast. I'm here today. Got a special guest from NBC Sports Boston. Got my buddy Tom Curran in with me today, man. Tom, how you doing?
I'm great, Kendall. I'm glad to be with you, buddy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's been a while since we hooked up on a show, man. So I'm glad everything's been going well with you. Let's go ahead and jump on it. Go ahead, jump on in it, man. Drake Maye, his first year. I mean, first, what were your expectations for him, and how do you think what you think went wrong with him down the stretch in his first season?
My expectations were that he would have the learning curve we anticipated. My expectations, though, were that, he would be able to reach players in a way that would make the team continually, as the season went along, improve. And that's not what happened. I mean, they hit their peak really, obviously, very early in the season. Then they had the lag. And then there were so many losses, Kendall, that were related to, I think, situational football. There was too much tentativeness from Alex Van Pelt, which I understand to a degree. He came in, they told him, don't mess anything up here. Be cautious, don't lose games. And he kind of carried that through the whole season. But we saw so much game management and situational football that was bad. We saw so many occasions in which Gerard really was trying to make a statement at the podium and went in the wrong direction with the message he was trying to send and had to walk that back. And then we saw at the tail end of the season a team that was, over the final 4 games, declining. They won against Buffalo in the finale. They were competitive against Buffalo in the third to last game, but to play as badly as they did out of the bye against Arizona, and then even worse against the Chargers, and to have little tiny slip-ups that, because they came at the point they did, they were kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, like the miscommunication on whether or not Ramondre Stevenson was starting the game or not. It just kind of made you say to yourself, boy, I thought they'd be better in December. And when they weren't, I think to the Crafts, the presence of Mike Vrabel out there, the urgency of Drake Maye on a rookie contract, the tenor and tone of really the fan base, more so than the media, but the media as well, I think made them say, look, it's going to be torturous for him in 2025 if we don't move on. And it's going to be torturous for us because there wasn't light at the end of the tunnel, I guess. You know what I mean? It had gotten darker.
Were you surprised how quick they made the move? Because it seemed like, I think before the players got to their car, after that Bills game, it seemed like breaking news, Schefter, Vrabel, everybody just took it out. Like, were you surprised at how quick it happened? I thought it probably happened the next day, within the next 24 hours. I thought it was going to happen. I just didn't think it was going to be that quick. Were you surprised?
Yeah, I was surprised it happened that quickly. I can't lie about that. And then, asking, because I know that, candidly, Gerard's family was very hurt by the fact that within an hour of the game ending, they're still in the, he hasn't even showered and come out. And news is there that as he's coming out to the post-game buffet, that he's been fired. It was kind of a humiliation that I don't think Robert Kraft in particular, anticipated. And they wanted to get it done so he wasn't dangling. They wanted to give him an opportunity to know his fate quickly. Certainly, selfishly, I'm sure that they also wanted to quickly move to Mike Vrabel because he had just interviewed with the Jets. But I think that, they wanted to make sure that they weren't going to bring him in the next day and say, yeah, we could have told you yesterday, but we'll tell you now, we're letting you go. I do think, Kendall, that was a miscalculation on ownership's part. They should have made that decision the next day, or at least called him back at 9 o'clock.
Better.
You call him back at 9 o'clock, say, man, we want to come over to your house. And they did it with friggin' Brady and Belichick when Brady was leaving. You know where Gerard lives. Go to his friggin' house. Right. Sit down in his living room. Do it that way if it's necessary.
I agree with you there. It was a straight. I think they could have handled it better, but I think we about to get into Mike Vrabel real quick. With Mike Vrabel been out there interviewing with the Jets in your same division, your hated rival, they had to move very quickly and whatnot. Moving on to Mike Vrabel, do you think he's the right fit for the job? I feel good. I like that. We're gonna get into the hirings here in a little bit, but I feel like he's the right fit. another former player, former linebacker, another defensive coach. A lot of people out there say, well, they're staying with the Patriot way to get these former players and things like that. I feel like it's different because Vrabel has been there, done that. He coached the Titans for a while. He's known as a good culture builder. I had heard some negatives about how he builds his offensive staff, and we're going to get into Josh McDaniels shortly. But do you think it was the right fit and time to bring Mike Vrabel? Because I think it would have been last year had Mayo not had the clause in his contract. Do you think right time and fit for Mike Vrabel right now with the Patriots?
There could be no better fit. I mean, you could talk about Ben Johnson, but do you know Ben Johnson is Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay, or is he Adam Gase? You don't know.
Big risk.
And you've never seen him stand at the front of a room. He doesn't know where the landmines are. Mike knows where the landmines are. Additionally, Josh does too, and we'll talk about it. Gerard didn't know where the landmines are. That's why he ended up, getting his foot blown off repeatedly. Right. So Mike knows where the landmines are, and whatever this patient, if you look at the Patriots like they're on a gurney, Kendall, and you say, all right, let's triage this guy. What's the biggest problem? You can say, well, it's talent. Well, we can't fix that all at once, but maybe we can try and get in there and fix the culture and the discipline and the coaching staff. Gerard was at a disadvantage because being on the Patriots and never having been a head coach and never having been outside the Patriots organization and having been at Optum for a period of time and then going back to the Patriots, he didn't have a network of individuals around the league the same way Mike does, the same way any of these guys do. I mean, it's just a network. These guys are constantly in contact with each other. So Gerard was at a disadvantage building a staff, and he was working with bits and pieces and remainders and recommendations. Not that those guys were horrible, but some weren't that great. So to me, Mike is the perfect fit because of culture, because of discipline, because of communication ability with the players, because of the ability to call bullshit on people when they're doing bullshit things, because of game management and situational management, an ability to communicate with the fans through the media and also directly to the fans. All of those things make him an absolute layup.
Do you think he's kind of similar to Bill, or do you think him and Bill are two different guys?
I think that Bill is much more of an angle guy than Mike Vrabel is. Bill is constantly evaluating and trying to figure out how to get an angle, a leg up. How can this relationship help me, whether it's with a media person, whether it's with a political figure, a celebrity, a player, an owner, whatever. And you can almost hear it during his media appearances.
Right.
The names that he drops were never done so by, happenstance or coincidence. So I think Vrabel's much more genuine and authentic. And people said the same thing about Parcells. That's been mentioned. Parcells was kind of a bully. Yeah. There was no real empathy there. And I think Vrabel, for as much of a dink as he can be, and he's been a dink to me many times, and but I think that at his heart, he kind of gives a shit. He'll be a dink to start off with, and you go, what do you, come on. And he'll go, yeah, I'm only shitting you.
Josh McDaniels, the past 24, 48 hours, been a lot of news floating out about the Patriots. They're interviewing all these offensive coordinators. They had a guy from the Vikings. I can't think of his name right now. They interviewed Thomas Brown, I think, last week. A couple other guys they interviewed. I think he's from the Colts, I believe, or the Chargers.
Marcus Brady, and Zinski,
Thomas
and
Brown.
Thomas Brown were the four guys.
Yeah,
it was another one that never figured it out.
Yeah, they interviewed a few, but a lot of people league-wide and, Patriot Reporter, y'all probably already assume it's going to be Josh McDaniels and whatnot. It's official now. Josh McDaniels, the breaking news came out yesterday from all the big-time media outlets. Not saying you guys are, because y'all was on it already, but Shelton came out. Josh McDaniels officially hired as the Patriots OC. I think Terrell Williams just came out. He's going to be the defensive coordinator.
Yep. And
they brought back Jerry Springer. This question here
about not Jerry.
Jeremy Springer.
Yeah, the talk show.
Yeah,
it doesn't match. You're not the father,
right? Josh McDaniels. What? This is a two-part question. Sure. First off, how do you think he's going to mesh with May? And secondly, is it official that Van Pelt's probably out? He's gone. I hadn't seen anything.
Let's start with the second part first. Would Alex Van Pelt or T.C. McCartney, either of them, be amenable to staying here? T.C. McCartney, the quarterback's coach, be amenable to staying here in the roles that they did. Because honestly, I thought that Alex Van Pelt was not a friggin' disaster. He was an adult. I did not like his lack of aggressiveness and his down low play calling in the red zone and in goal to go situations and in short yardage frequently. But he must have had a good influence on on Drake, and the number of players who told me on the record and off how good an offensive coordinator Van Pelt was makes me wonder, would he stick around if they wanted him to? Now that is the key portion. Same thing with TC McCartney. I thought the team, those quarterbacks, Joe Milton, let's point to him, he
Yeah.
really improved. And those are the kinds of things that quarterbacks coaches are not going to be with the starter as much as the offensive coordinator will. So I would imagine TC McCartney had a big role in Joe Milton. So they could stick around. But as to Josh, you got a guy who's coached in 6 Super Bowls. You got a
Yeah.
guy who has coached in how many AFC championships? You got a guy who has developed Brady through a period of time from 2005 and was the quarterback, was the offensive coordinator for the greatest friggin' offense in NFL history in 2007. You got a guy who came back in 2012, and fashioned an offense in 2012 and 2013 around tight ends, where the previous one had been fashioned out of wide receivers. Developed Garoppolo, developed to an extent Brissett, advised him to move on from Brissett when Brissett was too glacial a decision maker. Had a season with Cam Newton when they went 7-9 that they basically pivoted to a high school offense. In 2021, he gets a 10-win season out of Mac Jones, who just showed up. He's a really, really, really good offensive coach. So whether the Crafts, and we're listening to this a lot today, up here, the conversation, well, the Crafts made Belichick, made Vrabel take him. You think Vrabel's going to do anything against his will? Do you think if Vrabel
I've heard that a lot too, but I don't believe it.
who can? I mean, whether the Crafts, I think if you lined up all these candidates and anybody said who would be the best fit for the Patriots right now, for the Patriots, you could say probably Josh McDaniels. He knows the system. He knows the landscape. He's developed quarterbacks before. He makes a lot of sense. So to me, you get a guy with that kind of experience and that kind of track record who does not want to jump to be a head coach, does not want to jump to be a coach the way that Nick Caley might, or Odzinski or anybody else. You hire him and say, Josh, take care of the offense. I'm going to be over here trying to fix this defense with Terrell.
2 more questions real quick, Tom, before we get you out of here.
Sure.
Are you expecting a lot of moves in free agency this offseason for the Patriots coming March?
Am I going to what, Spence?
Are you expecting them to make a lot of moves in March for free agency?
Geez, it's just such a great question, and I keep pointing this out. When we look at free agency, yeah, and I expect them to be busy as hell because they get so much money. But Kendall, look at this. The TV contracts have so exponentially expanded the salary cap in the most recent years that teams all have this massive amount of cap space because cap keeps going up and there's big space. So as a result, teams kind of have money to burn. They got to get rid of it. So, and there's some players who are still on old CBA contracts and some players on new. So teams are looking at these players and saying, we have this money. This is a good tackle, not a great tackle, but I'm not going to let him go. You look at last year, people are like, why did they spend the money? Because nobody was out there. Tyron Smith was the best tackle, along with Trent Brown and Jonah Williams, I think it was. Trent sucks. Tyron Smith was hurt all year. I think Jonah Williams was good. Might have the wrong name, last name. You want to spend $30 million on Calvin Ridley? I don't. So you got to spend it somewhere. But I just don't think good players hit the free agent market as often. So that was question 1. And question 2, Ken?
Drake Maye, how would you grade his rookie season? Being with everything that was going on, I know coming in too, you was like you was a kind of JJ McCarthy guy. But how would you grade? How would you grade Drake Maye's rookie season?
Boy, I'm going to give it a 90. A 90. It's right on that B+, A- grade. Because part of it, and the biggest part of it, and the reason that I really liked him at 3 if they stayed, and the reason I wanted JJ McCarthy was I wanted a trade down. So you had tackles, you had players to protect, which they didn't have, still in that same boat. Anyway, I give Drake most of the credit for his resilience, his physical resilience, his podium resilience, his mental resilience. He was on point with the messaging all year, and you need to be when you're with a shitty team. Secondarily, his improvement from the end of April until the end of the season was drastic. He was glacial and robotic in the first minicamp we saw him in, because he was really thinking the position and what Alex Van Pelt wanted him to do. He was much more smooth by the end of the year. He gets downgraded for those end-of-game picks, right? I mean, you can't be a gunslinger, but don't be a half a five out there.
And a lot of the interceptions were tip passes. He had 10 picks, but I think about 6 of them were tips, or like probably trying to force it when we're down 2 or 3 scores.
Yeah, there were a couple of them, but then I can think of 2 games at least in which the picks were end of the game, opportunity to tie or go ahead, and they weren't picks that bounced off somebody's hands. They were picks.
The Rams game, and I want to say that
there was a pick to nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no, and I think it might have been the Titans game in overtime.
Yeah, the last one in overtime.
Yeah, pick to nowhere. Just throw it into traffic. But
Tom, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm very welcome. I got to get out to my TV, but I appreciate it.
Hey, I'll be down at Radio Row, man. Give me some advice. It's my first time going. I got credentials this year.
All right. Text me when you get there.
Okay.
Come and see us. Yeah. We'll be there. Text me. Come on over. My advice would be take it slow. Just ease yourself into the pool, wander around, find somebody you can hang with. You can always sit. There's a lot of downtime, so you can just come on over, sit your ass down for a little while in our area, and we'll get you used to it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, Tom.
All right, Ken.